All right, so let's hear it. What does verse 13 say?
Verse 13 says, "The essence of the teachings is encapsulated in these 12 verses. These are teachings for those who are ignorant of the self and lost in worldly pursuits. The teachings are imparted by the wise who are well-versed in spiritual knowledge. These teachings originate from the revered feet of Bhagavan Shankaracharya."
Wow. Even just hearing those words out loud, you can feel the weight of them.
Right.
It's like a declaration almost.
Yeah, a call to attention.
Okay, so let's break it down line by line.
Sure.
That first line. The essence of the teachings is encapsulated in these 12 verses. What's the key message there?
Well, it seems to me that the key message there is that those preceding 12 verses are a complete set of instructions.
Right.
A guide to move from a state of ignorance to the knowledge of the self, which in Sanskrit is called Atman.
So it's like Shankaracharya is saying, hey, everything you need is right here.
Precisely.
Look no further.
It's all,
right.
all here.
Okay, then we get to the second line, which is, these are teachings for those who are ignorant of the self and lost in worldly pursuits. Now, this line seems to be speaking to a particular audience.
Yes, it is.
Almost like a certain type of person.
Yeah, it's a compassionate, but also very firm wake-up call directed at those who were caught up in material pursuits.
Right. Chasing wealth.
Yeah, chasing wealth.
Pleasure, status.
Yeah, all those things that are ultimately
fleeting.
Yeah. Temporary.
It's so easy to get caught up in that chase, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's like a default setting for so many of us. And that's why this verse is so important. It's a reminder that there's something deeper.
Right.
Something more than the just surface level of existence.
Absolutely. And then we get to the third line. The teachings are imparted by the wise who are well-versed in spiritual knowledge.
Okay.
So this line seems to be emphasizing the source of the teachings.
Yeah, it highlights the importance of learning from those who have already walked the path.
Okay.
Who have that direct experience of truth.
Yeah.
This is the concept of satsanga in Indian philosophy.
Right.
Which means associating with the wise.
So it's not just reading books, listening to podcasts like this one.
Right.
But it's about finding living examples.
Yes. Finding those mentors.
Right.
Finding those teachers who can really guide you.
Okay, and finally, we have the fourth line, which is, these teachings originate from the revered feet of Bhagavan Shankaracharya. So this is where Shankaracharya himself comes into focus.
Yes, and not just as a philosopher, but as a figure worthy of deep reverence.
Yeah.
The verse positions him as a source of ultimate authority. Someone whose teachings are rooted in both scripture and direct experience.
So the verse is encouraging us to trust in Shankaracharya's wisdom.
Yes.
And to accept his teachings as coming from this place of deep understanding.
Precisely.
It's really striking how this one verse manages to encapsulate the content of the teachings, the purpose, the intended audience, and the ultimate source.
You could almost say it's like a blueprint for the entire Bhaja Govindam condensed into just 4 lines.
Yeah, it's like a miniature Bhaja Govindam condensed into these 4 lines.
Exactly.
Now, moving beyond the individual lines and looking at this verse as a whole, how does this verse connect to the broader themes of the entire Bhaja Govindam?
Well, one of the most prominent themes of the Bhaja Govindam is this idea of ignorance and its consequences.
Okay.
Shankaracharya really emphasizes how our minds, when fixated on the body and external possessions, ultimately create a cycle of suffering, a cycle of birth and death.
So the Bhaja Govindam, and specifically verse 13, is trying to help us break free from that illusion.
Absolutely.
Right.
Another crucial theme that emerges is the role of the guru, which we've already kind of alluded to.
Yeah.
The text highlights the critical importance of a spiritual guide in helping us see through the fog of ignorance and move toward self-realization.
And of course, Shankaracharya himself is presented as this ultimate guru.
The ultimate guru.
Yeah, but it's not all abstract philosophy, is it?
No, it's not.
The Bhaja Govindam also has this really practical element.
Absolutely. It offers concrete advice, such as letting go of attachments, cultivating discernment, practicing self-inquiry, and ultimately surrendering to the divine.
So it's not just about intellectual understanding.
Right.
It's about applying these concepts to your life.
Exactly.
Your daily life.
And that, I think, is one of the things that makes Shankaracharya's teachings so compelling, is how they bridge the gap between that abstract philosophy and everyday life.
Yeah.
He's presenting spiritual realization as something that is achievable, even amidst the chaos of the world.
So he's saying, you don't have to, renounce the world and become a monk to find enlightenment.
Right.
These teachings are for
Exactly.
for everyone. And the Bhaja Govindam offers some really tangible
It does.
examples to illustrate how to do this.
One that comes to mind is
Okay.
Shankaracharya's analogy of the fleeting nature of youth and beauty.
Mm-hmm.
He compares it to a deer that is captivated by the sound of a hunter's drum,
Wow,
only to be led to its demise.
that's a powerful
Yeah,
but kind of stark image.
it is.
What's the message there?
Well, the message there is that we can be very easily lured by superficial attractions,
Mm-hmm.
just like that deer is drawn to the sound of the drum.
Right.
We often pursue things in the world that offer a sense of excitement or fulfillment. But ultimately, if we become overly attached to these things,
Right.
they're going to lead to suffering.
So it's a reminder to be mindful of those things in life that we're giving our energy to.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, where are you placing your attention?
Because they may not be as lasting or fulfilling as we.
They may not be.
I think they are.
There's another verse where Shankaracharya talks about wealth.
Okay.
He uses this very vivid analogy of a poisonous snake living in your house.
Oh, wow. He's
Right.
like that.
He says that, you know, if you handle it wisely,
Yeah.
it can be a source of protection.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are careless,
Right.
it can bite you and bring you down.
It's like the saying, money is a good servant, but a bad master.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not that wealth is inherently good or bad,
Right.
but it's really about our relationship with it,
Okay.
how we use it.
So the Bhaja Govindam is using these very concrete
It does.
examples, almost like little stories,
Right, like fables.
to teach these.
Deeper philosophical principles.
And the thing is, they still resonate today.
Right.
Even though they were written centuries ago.
Right, because these are like universal human experiences. Desire,
Interesting.
attachment, loss.
Absolutely.
And so by reflecting on these stories, we can sort of glean
yes.
insights into our own
Yeah.
modern day struggles.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier,
Okay.
which is the role of the guru.
Yes.
It seems to be like a central theme.
Central theme.
And verse 13 in particular
Right.
really highlights Shankaracharya as this ultimate example of a guru.
As the ultimate guru.
What's interesting is how the text presents him
right.
as not just this wise teacher,
Right.
but almost like
a revered figure.
Yeah.
You know that phrase,
Yeah.
the revered feet of Bhagavan Shankaracharya?
Mhm.
It suggests something more than just
Right.
respect for his intellect.
It suggests a level of devotion.
Yes.
Almost.
Absolutely. So it's inviting us to approach these teachings with a sense of humility.
Yes.
Recognizing that there's
Right.
there's this lineage of wisdom that stretches far beyond
Right.
our own
Yeah.
vanity experience.
And I think that can be a really powerful antidote
yeah.
to that kind of individualistic mindset that's so prevalent today.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reminder that we don't have to figure everything out on our own.
Yeah.
There are those who have come before us,
Right.
who have walked this path,
Yeah.
and their wisdom is available to us.
And their wisdom
Listening to it.
is there for the taking,
Exactly.
as long as we're open to it.
It's not about blind faith.
Right.
It's about finding that balance between
Yeah.
honoring tradition
Yeah.
and also engaging your own.
Right. It's not about switching off
Right.
our own critical thinking.
You know, all throughout our discussion of these verses,
Yeah.
this concept of the self keeps coming up,
Right.
the Atman.
And it's a pretty complex idea.
It's not something you can just define in a sentence.
Right.
It's something that needs to be experienced.
How would you explain Atman
Okay.
to someone who's brand new
Yeah.
to these ideas?
I would say imagine stripping away all the layers of your identity.
Okay.
Your name, your job,
Yeah.
your relationships, your possessions, your personality traits. Even strip away all the thoughts, emotions, and sensations that you experience on a daily basis.
Right. Yeah.
What's left?
Yeah.
That pure awareness, that core consciousness that remains,
Okay.
even when all those other things are stripped away,
Right.
that is the Atman.
So it's almost like this silent observer,
Yes.
this unchanging witness.
To witness to the flow of life.
And the Bhaja Govindam is really guiding us towards realizing that our true self,
Okay.
that Atman.
So it's not just about learning about this concept.
No.
It's about having a direct experience of it.
A direct experience, yes.
And that's where those practices that we were talking about, exactly.
Like meditation, self-inquiry, contemplation
Yeah.
come in.
Those are tools that can help us
They'll help us
quiet the mind.
Yeah.
Really kind of peel back those layers
Yeah.
of conditioning.
They're not just abstract practice.
They have a purpose.
Right.
They're meant to lead you to something.
And verse 13, with this call to, wake up and embrace these teachings.
Right.
It's like an invitation.
It is an invitation
to embark on that journey.
to embark on that journey.
Self-discovery.
Yes, and it's a reminder that this journey, while profound, it's not reserved for a select few.
Okay.
This is available to everyone.
Everyone.
Regardless of their background.
It starts with that willingness to just kind of turn inward.
Yes.
To question our assumptions and to be open to new possibilities.
That's how it begins.
It's amazing to me how the Bhaja Govindam, and especially, verse 13 that we're focusing on today, it doesn't just give us like a bunch of abstract philosophy.
Right.
It's really giving us like a path to follow a way of life.
I think that's a great way to put it. It really is a guide for navigating all the complexities of life.
Yeah.
And, for finding that meaning and that purpose that we all search for in the midst of all the, ups and downs.
And it's not like this one-size-fits-all approach.
Not at all.
And that's what I think is so refreshing about these teachings.
It recognizes that each individual's journey is unique. And verse 13, with its emphasis on those 12 preceding verses, it's almost like we were saying a multifaceted gem.
Right.
Offering, different angles of insight.
It makes me think about this concept of satsanga that we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
Associating with the wise.
Right.
How would you describe the role of a guru, especially in light of verse 13's emphasis on Shankaracharya's authority?
Well, I think it's important to remember that in the context of these teachings, a guru isn't someone who kind of dictates what you should believe or how you should live your life.
Yeah.
It's more about having that guide, that mentor.
So it's less about blind faith.
Less about blind faith, exactly.
And more about finding someone who can really
help you see things from a new perspective.
Illuminate the path.
Illuminate the path, yes.
Yeah.
And verse 13 points to Shankaracharya as that ultimate example of such a guide.
Right.
Someone who not only, mastered the scriptures, but also lived and breathed these teachings.
It's almost like he's saying, I've walked this path and I can show you the way.
Exactly.
And this whole idea of revered feet that we see in verse 13, it's not about worshiping him like a deity.
Yeah, no.
It's more about recognizing that depth of wisdom and experience.
Absolutely.
And approaching his teachings with that kind of open mind.
Yes, with that humility.
Yeah, so it's almost like recognizing that you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
You can benefit from the wisdom of those who've come before.
And that can be really empowering.
Yeah.
Especially when we're feeling lost or confused or uncertain about our own journey.
It's like a reminder that we're not alone.
Not alone, exactly.
As we wrap up our deep dive today, I'm struck by how verse 13 is like a conclusion to these 12 preceding verses.
Right.
But it also feels like a beginning in a way.
It does.
What's the call to action here?
Well, I think it's a call to awaken to our true nature, to shift our focus away from the external world and turn it inwards.
To the inner landscape.
To the inner landscape, exactly.
It's an invitation to use these teachings of the Bhaja Govindam as a guide.
As our guide.
In that journey.
And to seek out that wisdom of those who have walked this path before us.
Okay.
And ultimately to discover that freedom and that joy that come from realizing our true self.
Beautifully put. And so we leave you, dear listener, with that invitation. Verse 13 of the Bhaja Govindam is a distillation of profound wisdom. It's a call to awaken to your true nature and a reminder that the journey towards self-realization is both accessible and deeply rewarding.